I still remember the exact sound of her voice, sharp, amused, coated in that syrupy sweetness she used whenever she wanted to land a blow without lifting a finger. "You've always been such a tidy little thing," Linda said, tapping her spoon on the rim of her glass like she was giving a toast. "Honestly, Michael, she's practically the maid around here." Before continuing with the story, thank you for coming here. For more stories, please subscribe to the channel. And please mention where you listened to it in the comments. Thank you. My fork paused midair. I didn't even get the chance to breathe before Michael laughed, really laughed. Head tilted back, full grin, like she'd just won Comedian of the Year. "Mom, stop," he said, but he was still laughing. "She likes keeping the place nice." The words hit harder than any insult she spat. It wasn't just that she'd disrespected me. It was that he'd enjoyed it. I swallowed the sting, keeping my face still. I had spent years in boardrooms perfecting that look, calm, professional, unreadable. It worked tonight too. I looked down at the sea blue scarf folded on my lap, rubbing the edge between my fingers. That scarf had been a gift from my daughter, a little anchor in moments when I needed grounding. I wasn't going to give either of them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Linda leaned back in her chair, satisfied. "I mean, really, honey. A woman who works this much should at least learn to cook properly. The least you can do is clean." Michael didn't defend me. Not once. Not even with a glance. Instead, he reached for the breadbasket like we were discussing the weather. I excused myself to the kitchen, telling them I needed to check the roast, though it had been done for 10 minutes. I needed the space, needed the quiet whir of the fridge, the hiss of the dishwasher, to gather myself. This wasn't new behavior from Linda. The difference was Michael. He was slipping. Or maybe he'd been this way all along, and I'd been too loyal to see it. I took off my bracelet, the one I wore every day, and set it on the counter. I'd bought it after my first major business milestone, a private reminder of resilience. Tonight, it felt heavier than usual. Their laughter drifted in from the dining room. Linda's voice floated above it. "I told you, she's too tired to be a real wife. It's all spreadsheets and meetings with her." My hands tightened on the counter edge. A real wife. A maid. Too career-focused. Too tired. Too everything. Respect had been slowly bleeding out of this marriage for years, and tonight I watched the last drop fall. I walked back into the dining room with a composed smile. Dinner's ready. They didn't see the shift in me yet. The quiet recalibration. But it was there. I felt it settle in my bones like a new posture. Linda sniffed the roast. "A bit dry, don't you think?" Michael smirked. "She tries." Something inside me clicked. Not snapped. Clicked, like a lock opening. I sat down, folded my napkin across my lap, and looked at my husband, really looked at him. He didn't notice, he was scrolling on his phone under the table, pretending not to. By dessert, I had already made the decision. I didn't make a scene. I didn't raise my voice or throw the pie at the wall. Instead, after they left and the house finally exhaled its silence, I wiped the counter slowly, placed my bracelet back on my wrist, and walked straight to my office. I opened the drawer where I kept my neatly organized files, receipts, copies of joint account statements, property tax letters, and the folder I'd labeled Household Audit. A habit from being a businesswoman. A habit that, suddenly, felt like a weapon. I powered on my laptop and opened my contact list. My lawyer's name sat quietly near the top. My hand hovered only a second. Then I pressed call. The phone rang twice before he answered. "Evening, Claire. Everything okay?" I looked out over my spotless kitchen, the kitchen they mocked me for, and felt something solid rise inside me. "No," I said. "Everything starts tonight." The morning after that call, the house felt different, too neat, too quiet, every sound amplified. Michael was already in the kitchen, pretending to read emails on his tablet. He didn't look up when I walked in. He was waiting for things to smooth over the way they always had, like my silence would eventually fold into forgiveness. I poured myself coffee, watching the steam curl in front of me. My sea blue scarf brushed my arm as I moved. It grounded me again, reminding me that this wasn't about pettiness. This was about dignity, respect, accountability. "You're up early," Michael finally said. "I had things to organize," I replied, calm. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. He raised an eyebrow. "You're not still upset about last night, are you?" "Mom was just joking." I looked at him. Really looked. Was she? He blinked, thrown by my tone. I didn't sound angry. I sounded resolved, and that unsettled him more than any shouting match ever could. He cleared his throat. "Well, you know how she is." "Yes," I said. "I know exactly how she is." Something flickered in his eyes, discomfort, maybe even guilt, but he pushed past it. "Anyway, she didn't mean anything by it. You know Mom likes to tease." "Tease," I repeated, letting the word sit. "Michael, she called me the maid." He shrugged, rolling his eyes like this topic bored him. "You're taking it too seriously." It was almost fascinating, the way he dismissed me with such ease. Years of contributions, financial, emotional, practical, wrapped into one careless shrug. "I see," I said. He didn't hear the shift in my voice, but I saw the faintest narrowing of his gaze. Maybe some part of him sensed I wasn't falling back into our old roles today. He picked up his keys. "I'm heading out. Don't be weird today, okay?" The words hit a nerve, but not the way he intended. They didn't hurt. They clarified. "I won't," I said. "I promise." After he left, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and the folder I'd pulled from my office, my household audit. It had started as a simple organization project, but over the years it had turned into something sharper, a full documentation of financial responsibility in our home. I had records of every bill paid by me, every account I contributed to, every time I'd covered expenses because Michael had been between jobs or sorting things out. This wasn't petty bookkeeping. It was clarity. My lawyer, Jordan, had asked for these documents during our call. "Nothing dramatic yet," he'd said. "We're just understanding the landscape." So I spent the next hour scanning, labeling, uploading. Every page told the same story. I was the backbone of this household, financially and practically. And Michael? He was decorative. Charming at parties. Good with surface-level affection. But beneath it? He took more than he gave. And his mother had raised him to believe that was normal. Halfway through the paperwork, the doorbell camera pinged. A package was being delivered, something I didn't remember ordering. I checked the footage out of habit, and froze. It was Linda. She stood on my porch with a plastic container, probably her version of an apology. Except the frosting on the container had a note taped to it. "Cheer up, sweetheart. Being useful is a gift." My chest tightened. She didn't see the problem. She was the problem. I didn't open the door. I watched her knock twice, then shrug and leave the container by the mat. When she turned around, her face passed close to the doorbell camera. The expression she wore wasn't apologetic. It was smug. Pleased. Like she'd fixed me. But what mattered most was the timestamp. It was proof. Proof she came to the house uninvited. Proof of her attitude. Proof of her so-called apology. I saved the video immediately, labeling the file carefully. Jordan's words from last night echoed in my mind: collect anything that speaks to pattern, behavior, or interference. The universe was delivering faster than expected. As noon approached, I drove to my office. The drive gave me space to breathe, to think, to plan. I called Jordan from the parking lot. "I uploaded the documents," I said. "And I have footage from this morning." "From the doorbell." His tone shifted to alert professionalism. Send it. Everything helps. I forwarded it instantly. He watched it in silence. Then, Claire, this is exactly the kind of pattern this case needs. Case. Hearing that word out loud didn't make me anxious the way I'd expected. It steadied me. When I walked into my office, my assistant, Valerie, handed me a stack of reports. Rough morning? She asked softly. Clarifying, I said. Around lunchtime, Michael texted me, Mom stopped by. Did you talk to her? She said you didn't open the door. I stared at the message. His concern wasn't for me, it was for her. I typed back, I was busy. A minute later, another text, don't make this awkward. She's trying. I didn't respond. Instead, I reached into my bag for my bracelet, the same one I'd worn during every major milestone. I touched the cool metal, grounding myself again. The next step had to be measured, strategic, flawless. Jordan called me again that afternoon. One more thing, he said. I reviewed your clean household audit. It's impeccable. If anything escalates, this will work in your favor. I exhaled slowly. Good. And Claire? Yes? Stay calm. You're playing this exactly right. Stay calm. I could do calm better than anyone in that house. When I got home that evening, Michael was already there, arms crossed, irritation leaking from every pore. You ignored my texts. I was working, I said simply. Mom thinks you're mad at her. I'm not mad, I said. I'm adjusting. He frowned. Adjusting to what? I looked at him, really looked, letting the truth sit unspoken between us. Then I walked past him, my sea blue scarf brushing against my arm as I headed upstairs. I wasn't his maid. I wasn't his mother's project. I was the one finally waking up. And he had no idea what was coming next. Michael's attitude shifted over the next few days, not softer, just wary. He wasn't the type to sense emotional nuance, but he sensed something, distance. A recalibration he couldn't name. I could see the questions flickering behind his eyes, like he wanted to ask if I was serious about being upset but didn't know how to say it without sounding defensive. I didn't offer clarity. My silence became its own language. On Thursday evening, when I returned home from a meeting, his car was already in the driveway. The living room lights were on, and I could hear Linda's voice floating through the open window. Of course. She'd let herself in, again. I walked inside to find the two of them on the sofa, talking like this was their shared home. Linda's handbag sat on my coffee table, her shoes, muddy, rested neatly beside my rug, not on it. I noticed that detail first. Always the rug. There she is, Linda announced, sounding like a principal addressing a late student. We were just talking about how you've been a bit sensitive lately. I set my keys down calmly. Were you? Michael gave a tight laugh. Mom thinks you're overreacting. Linda stood a little straighter, folding her hands together. I'm simply concerned. You've been cold. Standoffish. A good wife communicates, Claire. I looked at her. Not coldly, not with anger, just a steady evaluation. Linda, you don't live here. Why do you feel entitled to evaluate anything about my marriage? Michael shifted on the sofa. Babe. No, I said. It's a real question. Linda blinked, caught off guard. Well, I'm Michael's mother. I'm involved. I have a right to be. A right, I repeated softly. She nodded, missing the quiet shift in my tone entirely. Exactly. Michael added, she's just trying to help. I sat opposite them and crossed my legs. Then why did she let herself into our house without permission? Linda waved a dismissive hand. You've given me the code before. You know I come by. No, I said. I tolerated it before. That isn't the same thing. Michael frowned. Claire, come on. This is ridiculous. I leaned back, my bracelet cool against my wrist. I changed the code. The silence that fell was a palpable thing. Linda looked offended, Michael shocked. You what? He asked. I changed the code, I repeated. Last night. Linda sputtered, but I need to check on you too. No, I said, voice quiet but edged with steel. You don't. Her mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. This is disrespectful. Boundaries aren't disrespect, I said. They're clarity. Michael shot to his feet as if he'd been personally injured. Why didn't you talk to me before doing that? I held his gaze. Why didn't you talk to me before letting her treat me like a servant in my own home? His jaw clenched. Linda crossed her arms, suddenly on the defensive. You're so dramatic. I raised a hand slightly. If we continue down this road, I'll leave the room. I'm not staying for abuse. Michael's eyebrows shot up. Abuse? Yes, I said simply. Verbal, habitual disrespect. Dismissal. Interference. Linda let out a sharp scoff. You're making everything sound worse than it is. If Michael is unhappy. Michael flinched. Mom. There it was. That tiny flash of embarrassment. Guilt. Maybe even recognition that her overstepping wasn't helping him anymore. But she kept going. If Michael is unhappy, maybe you should focus on being more attentive. I knew what she meant. The insinuation hung heavy in the room. Outdated, unfair, and completely disconnected from reality. I had supported this household, financially, emotionally, practically, for years. Her son's happiness rarely had anything to do with effort and everything to do with convenience. I stood. Linda, I'd like you to leave now. Michael tisked loudly, pacing. Claire. No, I said. Non-negotiable. She needs to leave. Linda grabbed her purse. You're out of control. Possibly, I murmured. But in the right direction. As she approached the door, I noticed the flash of irritation in her eyes, deep, personal, offended. She wasn't used to being told no. Certainly not by me. When the door shut behind her, I felt the house shift again, lighter, quieter, but thick with Michael's anger. He rounded on me immediately. You're creating a war with my mother. No, I said. Your mother created the environment. I'm just responding. That's not how marriage works. I tilted my head. Marriage should work with respect. You think I don't respect you? I didn't answer. Silence did more than words ever could. He sank onto the sofa, rubbing his temples. Look, just stop being like this. You're making everything harder. I sat across from him, crossing my arms. Michael, I'm not your maid. I'm not her punching bag. And I won't be treated as either. He didn't speak. I let the silence stretch. Then, in a tone so calm it stunned even me, I said, tomorrow, I'll be at my office late. Don't wait up. His eyebrows knitted. Why? Because tomorrow, Jordan was finalizing preliminary documentation for legal strategy. Because tomorrow, I would be starting the formal process he didn't know was already underway. But all I said was, I have work. As I went upstairs, I felt something brush my fingers, my sea blue scarf hanging on the banister. I held it for a moment, breathing in the steadiness it brought. The moment of humiliation they'd given me was fading, replaced by something stronger. I wasn't acting out of anger. I was acting out of clarity. And I was just getting started. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp morning light that usually settled me, but today it felt like a stage light, illuminating everything I had ignored for too long. I left the house without much conversation. Michael barely looked up from his coffee. Maybe he thought this distance was temporary, that one quiet weekend would put everything back to normal. He had no idea how far past normal we were. At the office, I sank into work easily: spreadsheets, projections, negotiations. Numbers made sense. People, not always. My bracelet slid lightly against my wrist as I typed, the familiar weight of it grounding me. Between meetings, I checked my phone: one unread message from Jordan. Paperwork ready. Swing by when you can. I texted back, after 4. The day moved slowly, each hour deliberate, like the universe was telling me to take my time. And I did. I reviewed documents with clinical precision, removed emotion from the equation just long enough to see the truth clearly. Near lunchtime, Valerie poked her head into my office. "You've been quiet this week." "Just reorganizing my life," I said with a dry smile. She blinked, registering that it wasn't a joke, at least not entirely. "Do you need anything?" "Just time." She nodded and closed the door. By 4, I grabbed my sea blue scarf from my chair, it had been draped there all week like a silent ally, and headed across town. Jordan's office smelled faintly of leather and old paper, a comforting mix of order and authority. He handed me a folder thicker than I expected. "Not a divorce filing yet," he clarified. "Just preliminary documentation. A foundation." I opened the folder. Clean audit summaries of household finances. Notarist affidavit templates. Suggested boundaries lists. A record of verbal grievances and timestamped behaviors. And, neatly labeled near the front, a screenshot of the doorbell footage of Linda's smug apology visit. It was surreal to see my life laid out like a structured case file. "You did everything right," Jordan said. "You documented. You remained calm. You didn't retaliate emotionally. Courts respect that." "I'm not looking for a war," I said quietly. "No," he agreed. "You're looking for fairness. And fairness starts with clarity." I closed the folder. "What's next?" "You take it home. Read it. Sit with it." Then he leaned in slightly. "And Claire, don't let them bait you. You're ahead right now. Stay ahead." I nodded, thanked him, and left. In the car, I held the folder on my lap. The weight of it didn't frighten me, it steadied me. Finally, there was a path. A plan. Not chaos, not despair, strategy. I drove home slowly. When I walked inside, the house was dim, the living room warm with soft lamplight. Michael sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone as usual. He looked up when he heard the door. "Late again," he said, without accusation but with clear expectation. "I told you I'd be." He studied me for a moment, as though comparing this version of me to the one he used to know. "You're different." "Maybe I'm clearer," I replied. He frowned. "Mom wants to come over tomorrow." "No." The answer came out so calmly, so quickly, that his eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated. "She's not coming over tomorrow. Or the next day. Or any day until she apologizes sincerely and respects boundaries." Michael gave a laugh, short, incredulous. "You're insane if you think my mother is apologizing to you." I set my bag down, removed my scarf, folded it carefully, and placed it on the table. "Then she doesn't come." "You don't make the rules here, Claire." A quiet, almost eerie calm washed over me. "I do when the rules keep me from being disrespected in my own home." His eyes flashed. "You're blowing everything out of proportion. I'm acknowledging patterns you've denied for years." He stood abruptly, pacing the room like a frustrated teenager. "This is marriage. People fight. She insults me. You laugh. That's not fighting. That's alignment." He stopped pacing. That hit him. I moved past him, heading toward the kitchen, not running, not hiding, just giving space. The silence between us thickened until it stretched like a warning line. After a moment, he followed. "Claire, are you thinking about leaving?" His voice cracked slightly on the last word, just enough to reveal the insecurity behind it. I turned, leaning against the counter. I'm thinking about protecting myself. And me? Will you protect me? I asked. He hesitated. Hesitation was the answer. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. His jaw tightened, frustration simmering beneath the surface. This is because of my mother. You're choosing to destroy our marriage over her. No, I said. Your mother lit the match. You poured the gasoline. He rubbed his forehead, spiraling. What do you want from me? Respect, I said simply. Accountability. Boundaries. And if you can't give me that, then distance. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. So what, are you threatening divorce? I held his gaze. Steady. Quiet. Certain. I'm giving you the opportunity to step up before I take steps you won't like. He scoffed. You're being dramatic. Maybe, I said, lifting the folder ever so slightly. Or maybe I'm being prepared. He saw the legal papers. His face drained. Claire, what the hell is that? A summary, I said. Of everything I've contributed. Everything I've tolerated. And everything I won't tolerate moving forward. His expression twisted, anger, disbelief, fear competing. You went to a lawyer? I did. Are you serious? Very. He took a step back as if the truth physically pushed him. Why would you do that? I tilted my head. Why would I need to? The house fell silent. No shouting. No chaos. Just the quiet moment a man realizes the woman he underestimated is no longer standing where he left her. He whispered, "What happens now?" I closed the folder, placed it gently on the counter, and wrapped my sea blue scarf around my shoulders. Now, I said, you decide who you want to be. And I decide what I'm willing to live with. Then I turned away, letting the silence finish the sentence he couldn't. The weekend unfolded with a deceptive calm, the kind that hides a storm beneath still water. Michael barely spoke to me Saturday morning, moving around the kitchen like a stranger borrowing space instead of a husband living in his home. He kept glancing at the folder on the counter as if it might bite him. By mid-morning, he cracked. Mom's furious, he said abruptly. I didn't look up from my coffee. I assumed she would be. She thinks you're trying to break up the family. I took a slow sip. Setting boundaries doesn't break families. Disrespect does. He let out a sharp exhale, pacing again. Always pacing. You're really not going to let her come over? No. He stared at me like I'd insulted gravity itself. You're being impossible. I set my mug down, finally meeting his eyes. No, Michael. I'm being consistent. He hated that. Hated the way logic dismantled his narrative. He opened his mouth to argue again, but his phone buzzed. He snatched it up, probably Linda. His expression twisted. She's outside. My stomach dropped, not with fear, but with exhaustion. She wasn't invited. He ran a hand through his hair. Please don't start. I'm not starting anything, I said. You're the one opening the door if you choose to. He hesitated, torn between two loyalties he'd never learned to balance. Then he muttered something under his breath, stomped toward the front door, and swung it open. Sure enough, Linda stood on the porch, holding a casserole dish like a prop in a courtroom drama. Her lips pinched when she saw me behind him. There she is, she said brightly. My favorite little helper. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't offer a smile. Michael tried to speak first. Mom, maybe now's not. She brushed past him like he was furniture. I'm not here for conflict, she said, setting the casserole on the table without asking. I'm here to talk to my daughter-in-law. Her gaze slid to me with a practiced sweetness that hid sharp edges. I think we should clear the air, she said. I stood still. Then maybe you should start with an apology. Her eyebrows shot up. For what? I let the silence answer her. Her saccharine smile flickered, cracking at the edges. If you're referring to that Maid comment, you know I was joking. No, I said softly. You were demeaning me. And Michael laughed. Michael stiffened, shifting his weight. Linda gave an airy scoff. Oh, darling, you really are sensitive. Marriage requires thick skin. Family even more. Disrespect doesn't get softened by tradition, I replied. Linda tilted her head. Claire, sweetie, you're making a scene where there isn't one. This is the scene, I said. You created it. I'm just choosing not to be silent in it anymore. Her smile vanished fully now, replaced by something colder. You're out of line. Michael flinched. He'd heard that tone before, directed at him, directed at others. He recognized it too well. I stepped closer, voice still level. This home is not a place you get to walk into uninvited. Not anymore. Her eyes widened, indignation rising like a tide. I am Michael's mother. I have every right. You have none, I said. Not here. Michael swallowed hard. Mom, she changed the code. Linda turned to him as if I wasn't even present. You let her do that? He looked trapped. Torn. But for once, he didn't immediately rush to her side with blind agreement. His silence threw her off balance. She turned back to me, voice dripping venom now. If this marriage falls apart, it will be your fault. I blinked once. Calm. Steady. If this marriage falls apart, it will be because you taught your son that women should bow to him, and he believed you. The room went still. Michael's throat bobbed, guilt flickering in his eyes, deeper this time, rooted. Linda's face reddened. This is unbelievable. You're manipulating him. No, I said. I'm finally telling the truth. Before she could launch another tirade, there was a sharp vibration in my pocket. I pulled out my phone. It was Jordan. I stepped aside and answered quietly, with Linda's glare burning into my back. Everything all right? He asked. Yes, I said. She showed up again. Jordan sighed. Did you get it on the doorbell camera? I checked the notification, there it was. Linda, ranting on my porch before Michael let her in. The audio caught enough. Her tone alone was incriminating. I did, I said. Clear footage. Good, Jordan said. Keep it. These patterns matter. I hung up and walked back into the living room. Linda looked at me with triumph, assuming I'd been tattling. Running to your little lawyer already? No, I said. Just confirming things. Michael's eyes darted between us. Claire, what's going on? I turned to him, softening just enough to speak plainly. Your mother isn't just rude, Michael. She is interfering with our marriage. And I'm done pretending it's harmless. Linda scoffed. You're melodramatic. And you, I replied, are documented. Her face strained. What? I gestured toward the front door. Doorbell camera. It captures audio. Michael's jaw dropped. Wait, you recorded her? I didn't have to, I said. The camera did. Linda stepped back. You can't use that. That's evidence? I asked. Of a pattern? Of hostile behavior? Of interference? Of harassment? Her voice cracked. You wouldn't. I would, I said. And something inside her broke. The confidence, the entitlement, the unchallenged authority, cracked straight down the middle. Michael ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. Claire, please. Let's all just calm down. I am calm, I said. I've been calm for years. He stared at me, chest rising and falling too fast. Where does this lead? I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw something genuine, fear that he might lose something he never realized he took for granted. Where it leads, I said softly, depends on the choices you make next. Linda's eyes narrowed. You're threatening him. No, I said. I'm giving him clarity. I picked up my sea blue scarf from the chair, draped it over my shoulders, and walked toward the stairs. At the first step, I turned back. Linda, I said. Leave. And don't come back without an apology. She sputtered. You can't. Michael? I said, looking at him. He faltered. Hesitated. Then whispered, Mom, maybe you should go. Linda stared at him, betrayal etched across her features. He looked away. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Michael sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I stood on the stairs, one hand resting lightly on the banister. For the first time in our entire marriage, the balance of power had shifted. Not through anger. Not through vengeance. Through clarity. Through truth. Through the quiet strength of a woman finally done being someone's maid. And he knew, deep in the hollow of his chest, that the next move was his. Or mine. Sunday morning arrived with a heaviness that clung to the house like fog, quiet, slow, expectant. Michael wandered through the kitchen in a daze, making coffee with the distracted energy of a man living in someone else's life. He kept glancing at me as if waiting for a signal, a cue, some familiar softness. But I was done performing softness for people who weaponized it. He finally spoke. Mom's not talking to me. That's between you and your mother, I said. He rubbed his face with both hands. She's never been this angry. She's also never been told no. He flinched, pacing yet again. Claire. I'm trying here. But you blindsided me with that lawyer stuff. How am I supposed to process that? You're supposed to decide, I said, whether you want a marriage or a mother who treats your wife like a servant. That's not fair. It's reality. He paused at the counter, staring down at my bracelet where I'd set it beside my coffee mug. You're really willing to throw this away? No, I said gently. I'm willing to stop letting you throw me away. The words hit him harder than anything I'd spoken all week. His face crumpled for a moment, just a moment, and then the old defensiveness returned like armor. You're making everything so dramatic, he muttered. Michael, I said quietly, look at me. He did. When your mother insulted me, you laughed. When I asked you to defend me, you dismissed me. When I asked for boundaries, you called me impossible. When I showed you actual evidence of her harassment, you protected her feelings, not mine. That's not marriage. His shoulders sank. I know. Do you? I asked. Because every time I draw a line, you hand her the chalk. He stared at the floor. What do you want me to do? Accountability, I said. Respect. Boundaries. And a plan to enforce them. And if I can't give that? Then we go our separate ways with dignity. He swallowed hard. I don't want that. Then show it. The doorbell camera pinged. Michael stiffened like the sound itself was a threat. He pulled out his phone, checked the alert, and swore under his breath. It's her, he whispered. My heart thudded once, annoyance, not fear. I told you she's not welcome here. He hesitated. Maybe I should talk to her. Then talk through the door, I said. She doesn't step inside. He stared at me again, searching for the old version of me, the forgiving one, the accommodating one, the one who tucked herself smaller so others could take up space. She was gone. He walked to the front door. I followed at a distance. Linda stood on the porch, arms crossed, face twisted with a righteousness she wore like perfume. Michael, she said sharply. Let me in. No, he said. She blinked. What? No, he repeated, voice cracking but firm. Mom, you can't come in. Her nostrils flared. Is she making you say that? No. I'm saying it. She scoffed loudly. I raised you better than this. He shook his head. No, Mom. You raised me to think disrespect was normal. To think Claire should swallow everything you say. To think I never had to step up. That stops now. Linda froze. And you know what? He continued, chest rising with something I hadn't seen in him for years: ownership. You don't get to insult my wife, walk into my home, and act like she should thank you for it. Oh, please, Linda spat. She's manipulating you. No, Michael said. She's telling the truth. I leaned against the hallway wall, listening, not intervening, not rescuing, just witnessing. For the first time in our entire marriage, Michael was holding his mother accountable. Linda's face went red. So what, I'm the villain now? No, Michael said. But you've been wrong. And you need to apologize. She stared at him like he'd slapped her. I will not. Then you can leave, he said, voice quiet. And come back when you're ready to respect my wife. Linda inhaled sharply, offended, furious, undone. You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing my marriage, he said. And with that, he closed the door. Not slammed. Closed. A clean boundary. He turned toward me. His eyes were wet. Claire. I'm trying. I nodded. I see that. He took a shaky breath. What now? Now, I said, stepping closer, we rebuild or we separate. But either way, the disrespect ends today. He nodded, slowly, carefully. I want to rebuild. Then we do it with structure, I said. Rules. Agreements. Documented boundaries. He gave a short, nervous laugh. You're really treating this like a contract? I'm treating it like a partnership. I walked to the living room, opened the folder Jordan had helped me prepare, and handed Michael one of the pages: a simple, clear, mutual agreement on home boundaries and respectful communication. Read it, I said. Sign it if you agree. If you don't, then we know where we stand. He sat down, reading slowly. His expression shifted: recognition, humility, maybe even shame. When he finished, he looked at me. I agree, he whispered. I'm sorry, Claire. For everything. You're apologizing to me, I said. Not to her. Yes. He signed it. For the first time in years, I believed him. Later that evening, after the house settled into a rare kind of peace, I tied my sea blue scarf around my shoulders and stood at the window, watching the dusk settle over the neighborhood. Michael approached quietly. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said. I turned toward him. I didn't stay for you, I said softly. I stayed for myself. Because I deserve a marriage that honors me. And I want to give you that, he replied. Then keep proving it. He nodded. And for the first time, truly the first time, I saw a future where clarity, not chaos, shaped our lives. A future where respect wasn't begged for but built. A future where I wasn't anyone's maid, but the architect of my own peace.